Hey all, Simone here. Really good to see you. I know it's been a while. We've had really fantastic summer and sometimes you gotta kind of slow down to speed up. So we've been doing a lot of really cool stuff for our clients and for our team to really get on point to make sure that we are the best in the world at what we do, not just in 2023, but starting now. So one of the things we did is we reviewed our most successful clients and really looked at, what did they do the first 3 quarters of this year that set them up to win the way they are right now, which is phenomenal. So we wanted to see what the common thread is. And I want you all to really think through this. This is like so many people have the habit of we're going to do all planning in this the kind of traditional November, December. We're going to have planning meetings. We're going to do all that stuff now. But if we're waiting till November, December, that means maybe we're going to start implementing in January. When right now, Q4 is your best sandbox. It's the best time to figure out how to really set yourself up to win, not just the next year, but starting now. So first of all, we have to do the retrospective. We have to figure out, what did we do this year that really worked? What didn't really work? So this is the time to really look at that and go, okay, so where did we win? What do we do that we want to repeat? Where did we really make those big shifts that set us up in a way that we've never been before? And then of course the other one is, what didn't work so well. And the really crazy thing is, whether you're winning or it's not going well, if you don't have a practice of reviewing and having and doing that retrospective and giving yourself and the team the feedback of like, hey, what worked? Let's do more of that. Let's celebrate that. And what didn't work, let's figure out as a team what really happened. Where did we miss? What do we need to improve? What's really going on so that we have an accurate picture of what worked and what didn't work. So what I'm saying is if you don't have the habit of actually doing an active retrospective and consciously reviewing what happened, it's kind of amazing how it just kind of goes by and the learning doesn't stick. And that's, of course, the most important thing. You've spent this entire year doing testing, doing research, doing all this stuff. And now we got to make sure we implement what we've learned. So this is the time of year to do that, where like with our clients, what we do is we take our Q4 plan and really we amp it up, we dial it in just like we would for 2023. So we already implement all the learnings so that we can take everything that we already know, put it on the testing ground again, and then also keep aligning, keep tweaking, keep adjusting to make sure that by the time January 1st rolls around, we are already like, we got a leg up, we're already operating, everything is going great. So really important to do that. So when we're looking at, what our most important clients did right, is what we discovered is they have really focused on our three most important measures. For one thing, they made sure that there is complete clarity all the way across the company. And for us, that starts with having crystal clear vision, 3-year strategic plan, and that plan that gives everybody the full picture of like where this company is going, how they fit into it, and its internal perspective, right? It's the external, we already know that, but it's the internal perspective of how are we all working together? How does everybody fit into the plan? What are the benefits? What are the contributions? What are the responsibility? Where does the ownership live? And how does everybody do that as a cohesive team, as a cohesive force, rather than having a whole bunch of people running around like chickens with their heads cut off and just kind of hoping that it'll work? And it is shocking. There's so many statistics about how many companies don't have crystal clear clarity in their vision. And maybe they have it at the top level, but it's not being shared through all the different layers of the organization. You may only have 2 layers, you and the rest of the team, or you may have 7 or 8. But if not every single person on your team 100% understands how they fit into the vision of the company, how they influence it, how they impact it, how they are a part of it, what their contribution is, and also, again, what the ownership and the accountability is, you're losing on so many levels. It's just like you might have 5 to 8 on your leadership team, and then there's 50 people who don't know what they're doing. So, really interesting when we have talked to our really successful clients about that. One thing that they say is that a lot of their team members, during the Great Resignation, if anybody left, when they came back because they said, "Look, I mean, I can't believe like I didn't realize what I had here. When I went somewhere else, nobody shared any of this stuff with me. I felt like a cog in the wheel. I felt like I was unimportant. I felt like I had no impact. I felt like I didn't have any growth opportunities. So I want to be here." And that's also what we're finding our clients who are incredibly successful with hiring is because they offer that environment. So no matter if you're hiring at the high executive level or really at the super junior, execution level, people realize how important that is, not just for their mental sanity, for their productivity, for their happiness, but also for their value as an individual contributor or as a contributor, so that they keep growing more valuable in the job market, and also just for their own happiness and satisfaction, because everybody wants to feel like, hey, what I do, what I do is important. It has meaning. We are in a place of where I actually matter in my function in the company. So this crystal clear vision is massively, massively important. And then, of course, what comes out of that, the next step is a step-by-step measurable, specific operational plan. So we have that high level 3-year strategic plan up here, the vision that kind of like gives us the overview, that gives us the umbrella, but then we have to reverse and then engineer that and chunk that down into a step-by-step operational plan that makes it more tangible, that makes it more actionable, that makes it more understandable for the team, so that they can understand, hey, this is where we're going in 3 years, but this is what that means for me this year, this quarter, this month, this week, today. So we're all, again, kind of rowing in the same direction. The right thing gets done at the right time in the right way. So that piece is huge. And where most companies miss, and where do we do this very, very differently from anybody else, is we make sure that it's a collaborative effort. Because again, everybody wants to feel like they have significance. Everybody wants to know that they matter, that they're being heard, that they're being seen, that they have input, that what they do all day long is valuable. So if we don't give them the opportunity to have that power over their own day, oh, well, if their whole day is being told what to do because they're being delegated to, my favorite word, well, most smart people don't like being told what to do. It actually sets up complete resistance psychologically very quickly. So the only way we can help people get out of that mindset and get into something that makes them a lot more accountable and a lot more engaged is by making them part of that plan. Now, how to do that, it's not the easiest on the planet, but it is very doable. And once that works, it gets you that piece of accountability and ownership like you've never seen before. And I know a lot of our clients were struggling with that before they came to us. So that is like those two pieces, just giving people complete clarity over where the company is going, how they fit into it, and what their role and their responsibility and their contribution is a huge, huge step to really get dialed in, like right now. Like you can still do that for this quarter, even though there's just like, I don't know, five weeks left. It's like, no, 2 months left, but we can still make a big push, and we can still create a lot of wins from that. So that's the piece of clarity. And then that second part is compliance. And that's one thing we've already talked about, that we start with by having everything be collaborative, so that every single person, and again, this is what I mentioned before, we need to make sure that every single person on every single level of the company is involved in this planning process. So you still set the direction, you still set the outcomes, but people need to make sure that they have their own path for getting there, that they can actually, that you can use their highest potential, that you can really use their clarity and their creativity and their brilliance and their talent that they're bringing to the table, and it's not limited by you, because what we're used to, the old school concept of delegation means I'm just going to say how I want this done, so everybody's going to do it the same way, which great. There's some value to standardization, but it's also incredibly limiting in terms of talent and inspiration and creativity. And that's why you have all these other people on the team, not just to execute your words, but to bring their own mojo to the table, which is what helps you make an excellent company. This is kind of the difference between making a good company great. You can have a good company when it's just all about the way you see it, the way you do it, because now everything is limited by your knowledge, your wisdom, your talent. Or you can have a great company when you really figure out how to lead people and help them become part of a much greater picture where they can really bring their highest potential to the table. So that piece is the compliance, where really every person in the company is part of the long-term planning, the short-term planning, and they have ownership over their outcomes. And that really supports their core value of freedom for everybody. And it also does it for you, because now you have a team that shows up at a much higher level. They're engaged, so you don't have to constantly follow up, because they're actually going to follow through, because they're excited about what they're doing and they know what they're doing and they're dialed in, versus just being consistently limited by having a step by step plan that somebody else developed, and you have to walk that plan, and there's your limitations, and that's just how you have to live. So, which is super uninspiring, you know? So freedom and ownership really work hand in hand for a highly performing bought-in team. So we really have to make sure that that exists. And that's why we want to make sure that there's compliance in the team. And the compliance comes from actually buying in and not being made to do something, right? There's one of my favorite quotes by Norman Schwarzkopf is, leadership is getting people to do willingly, which they would ordinarily not. So that as a leader, that is your job, is to figure out how do people do something willingly, because they're actually excited, they're inspired, they see your vision, they're part of it, and they're bought in. So now they're giving it their all, they're giving it their best, which of course is a win-win situation, because now instead of controlling and managing and doing all that icky stuff we all don't want to get to do, you get to lead, you get to coach, you get to teach, you get to do all those things that help you actually up level the people on your team. And that means it's a much more sustainable process, because it's not just this one time you're going to tell somebody no. They're actually getting the picture, and then they're executing within that picture. And then the third piece that comes along with that is mastery. And that's really, again, where your value as a leader comes in, because when your culture is focused on high performance, well, that also means that people have to understand what it means to become a high performer. So they have to channel their inner high performer. So high achievement, development, and constant innovation are some of the most important core values that you can have in a company. And you want to package this however, which way it shows up in your company, because it has to be relatable and meaningful for everybody. So you couldn't just use the words of high achievement, constant learning, and innovation, because that's just going to sound canned. That's just going to sound completely generic. So when you think about values like that, ownership is another one, excellence or integrity, any of those, while the meaning still may be that, when you think about how you define and dial in your culture, you have to do better than that. You have to look at, give it a snappy, fun, memorable title for this. Can still mean that, but what does that mean in your company? Like, what's a specific phrase that is going to trigger that for everybody? And then what's a meaningful example for how that gets lived in your company? So that's setting up values and standards. And there's no mastery without shared values and standards. That sets up just the ground rules of how we operate. And then once we have those ground rules, those principles, right? Guiding principles in place. And then we have the clarity for the plan and the vision, and then we have the clarity for operation and how everybody fits into it. Well, then we're in a pretty good place, and everything is starting to really start moving. You have some good momentum. You have great people on board. But now we have to get focused on how do we keep this making better and better, that high achievement, that innovation, that always improving. And that only happens with a really good feedback system. So when you think about you as a leader, what's your job? Well, one of them is keeping the money rolling. One of them is expanding the vision consistently and constantly to everybody on the team and help your team do that for you. But then one of the most important pieces is leading your leaders. Now, that of course means that you have to have a really good structure where you have a tight, overseeable leadership team that you lead, and not like, you and 25 people below you. That's not how it works. But you have a good, tight leadership team, and you are their model. You are their example. So however you deal with them, however you treat them, however you call them forward, that's the same thing they're going to model when they work with their own directs. So this is such an important role that you have because you're teaching them how to lead. So part of that is giving frequent and consistent feedback. And that's done in your team meetings and of course in your one-on-ones. And one-on-ones is one of those things that most leaders hate. They would nothing rather than do away with them because it's such a big time suck. There's all sorts of excuses, but time is a big one. And of course, attention and actually sitting with people and making connections is another one. Not everybody is comfortable or excited to do that. But it is one of the most important things that you do as a leader. So I really want to encourage you to think about that. Because if you're going with the traditional idea of performance reviews, which I really hate, for one thing, they create fear and intimidation because, whoa, my performance is being reviewed. What does that mean to me? So again, it sets up a lot of resistance subconsciously for people. And if you have a performance review once or twice a year, but you waited 6 months to tell somebody that they needed to change something. So you have this huge amount of wasted time, wasted potential, wasted momentum, wasted resources by not doing that. So you can still have a couple of official reviews that sort of summarizes everything that you've been telling people consistently throughout the year. Nothing wrong with that, but nothing that shows up in those reviews should ever be news. So this is really the piece where you have to, as a leader, you have to look at what you're doing. And I'm going to say a lot of business owners will miss with that point because they're not in the practice of giving consistent, clear feedback to their teams. And of course, you have to know how to do that. It's not the easiest thing. For a lot of people, it feels kind of like conflict. It feels like you're going to have this challenging conversation with people. And that can feel like that when you don't have a good construct for doing that. So I'd really recommend to get some mentorship around that so you know how to do that well. So that's pretty much it right now in terms of what to do to set yourself up to win for Q4. I mean, we're already in it, so we might as well keep making it better and use it as this sandbox where we look at the first 3 quarters and make sure that we really take the learning away and implement it now so we can test out better ways to get dialed in, to get a leg up for 2023. So once that happens, we can hit the ground running and really produce that next level of business that I know all of you have been really wanting to get to. So I hope this all made sense. If you want to learn more, we just put a great new training out, and you can find that at bulletproofbusinessgrowth.com. So go to bulletproof business growth. Jesus, I can't even say that. Bulletproofbusinessgrowth.com and check out our new training. And if you need anything from us, you know where to find us. Have a great rest of your day.